Okay, the water pump has been pulled out. Right, there's a lot of coolant that came out, so definitely put a lot of towels or paper towels just to avoid too much of coolant spilling everywhere. I'm sure some is unavoidable, but as you can see, there's a bit of coolant in places. There's a lot of these towels soaked in coolant. Obviously, I'll be changing the oil. Tricks: the timing guides, the upper timing guides and the side timing guides do have to be removed in order to gain access to the bolts. Really, it's the upper timing guide that you need to remove, but in order to get to the upper timing guide, you have to remove the side timing guides. In order to remove the side timing guides, you do have to remove this guy, pull it out, because it's easier to get to the bolts. Don't need to pull this guy out. You need to pull these guys out in order to gain access to it. That's the 12mm Allen wrench, well, hex key, sorry, and or you can use a 7/16 hex key. That also works. How to find a 12mm. Once you get that done, you will be able to pull out the 6 bolts. They're for the water pump. Crack the seal, the coolant spills out. Put a lot of towels or stuff to absorb the coolant to minimize spillage and contaminating just the bearings and whatever not. Some will fall, don't worry about it. And now regarding the water pump itself, sealant, I bought a primer, a seal primer. It's sort of brown gooey type stuff that I'll paint on both sides of the gasket, on the engine block side and on the pump side to supplement the actual gasket, because that's what I found they did from factory. The brown stuff that you see, that's what it is. That will obviously help seal it because you can't have any leaks, and that's where we're at. Okay, here's the old pump that has been removed. This stuff that you see here is like a prime sealer. Right, so I've added that to my new installation, both sides of the gasket and both sides of the water pump, on the water pump and on the engine block. This is the old pump. Everything looks good, but pity that it leaked, but it's pretty sturdy considering it's 133,000 miles. Okay, the old pump has been removed. Now this is the new pump that has been bolted in. Basically nothing much to it, just on the gasket I put some of the brown sealant liquid, painted it on all 4 sides, because it's a metal gasket, so on the engine block gasket, and then on the other side of the gasket and the water pump, and put all the 6 bolts. They're 10mm bolts to bolt the pump into the engine block, and tighten it up in a sequence, basically opposite sequence, so therefore it's tightened up uniformly to torque specification. And then now timing chain is ready to be installed. So the timing guides have been installed. They are relatively straightforward. You can check it out in the manual, but basically these things get pulled off, so therefore the timing guides bolts can be accessed. And I have lined up the crankshaft markings to the water pump, to the oil pump housing. Got this guy and its marking lined up. Right, can you see the marking? Yep, lined up. And this guy with this marking lined up. Now this marking is meant to be here, so therefore it'll be in rotational tension. This guy actually needs to be here, which means it'll be in rotational tension, and that's the tricky part of putting up the timing chain, which is next. Okay, I've put the timing chain in. So here's the deal. Take this guy off, put the chain through the hole, through that hole, and then put this guy back in there loose and thread the chain onto the sprocket, and make sure the marking, the triangle marking which is there, lines up with the chain like that. Okay, thread the chain through the water pump. Right now the chain is extremely loose at this stage, and mind you, this is still loose. These bolts aren't there, so this is free to move. Remove this guy, pull it out, pull the chain through, thread it into its gears, and make sure this is lined up with that dot that's there. And this is still loose, not bolted on. Okay, and attach this guy and make sure the chain threads through this sprocket, and make sure that that gold piece lines up with the marking there. Use a mirror or something to be able to confirm. So basically now we have a lot of slack here which is taken up by this, kind of held in place with this screwdriver. And here's the secret. The secret is basically you're going to now put a socket drive in there, turn it, this won't move, turn it so therefore the bolt holes line up, and stick a bolt in it and screw the bolt in. At that stage this part will be in tension because this will want to move anti-clockwise. It will want to move anti-clockwise. You put these two bolts in. There are no bolts here yet, so right now there's tension in the chain on this side of the chain. Move down here and using a socket drive, stick it in there and move the camshaft so therefore these bolt holes line up, and basically you'll have to pull it this way to line it up, and once it's lined up it's going to attempt to spring back that way, and so therefore it's putting tension on this side in this direction. Okay, so what you have is high tension now on the chain from here to here via this guy. This part is still loose, relatively loose, but it's lined up good. This part is loose but it's held in place. If it's too loose this will slip, and that's bad news. Okay, so that's where we're at. These have been tightened to torque specs. Okay, and now we're ready for the tensioner, the hydraulic tensioner. Okay, we'll be talking now about installing a new primary chain tensioner. Okay, so that's the tensioner right now, already installed, but we'll show you how to prime it with oil. A brand new tensioner needs to be primed with oil or else you will have a problem. And here's what we'll do. Okay, once you take the tensioner out, it will it'll look like this. And in the old tensioner, if you're discarding it, that's fine. If you're getting a new tensioner, effectively when you get the tensioner from the factory, it will look like this. Let's see, it'll look like this, already pressed in, but inside needs to have oil, and right now there's no oil. The best way to get the oil is use a cup like this or any other container, right, where you stick this in there, let it soak, let that hole soak, and you push on the top while it's soaked in the oil. Push on the top like this and let the unit expand, and it'll suck a whole bunch of oil in through this hole. And here's then the interesting part. You got to drain the excess oil because you got to be able to reset the tensioner. So you got to push this thing back in, but when you try and push it in to a certain spot, the oil will stop it from going any further. And here's the part, the fun part. You got to push that in to as much as it can, then using a small Allen key, you just tap. Don't even have to push hard. You just put something, a small Allen key in here, a pin or what that'll fit, and that will let some of the oil out. And you continue doing this. You push down on it and get some of the oil out. until you reach a point where it's just about to reset. About there. And you push the oil out. So which means the chamber is full of oil. And now you push enough oil out such that it does reset, which is fine, because now there's enough oil in there to fill the empty space. And now you try to turn it upside down like this and push it down to attempt to reset it. And if there's just enough oil in it, it will be in this point and you won't be able to reset it because there is air in it too. So you got to get the air out, turn it this way, and just use that Allen key and put it through that hole, and watch your face because the air will pop out and you'll hear a popping noise, pop. And when that's done, with that air gone, you'd be able to compress it that little bit extra, which will allow it to reset it when you have actually installed it in the car. Okay, and you can do this a couple of times to get used to it, to get a feel of it. It won't damage it as long as you don't wreck this hole. Okay. A quick summary of putting on the timing chain. Basically, you line up the marks on here, here, and there. Those single goal mark, double goal mark, single goal mark, and assemble everything together, including the tensioner guide. Reset the tensioner, put the tensioner in, and activate the tensioner. These things are not bolted yet to the cams, and then you will bolt these into the cam by turning the cam, bolt this into the cam by turning the cam, and you're done. Okay, all parts have been reassembled, radiator has been hooked up, piping all has been done, ready to try and start the car after the water pump change. Okay, here goes the crank, the first crank after water pump change and primary tensioner change. Nah, it kind of started, but it didn't kick.
It didn't ignition that much.
No, it didn't ignition that much.